out of the shadows comes a square beast, so bold, so strong, breaks the side into his knees, conquering the depths 500 meters down, going further and further, whispers travel all around the town. Did he push the limit, or did he drown a solid tool of a watch? Wing takes it up a notch, always offering value, but adding so much, the features, the options. Is it all a mirage? Aragon is the real deal. The dive tank is reinforced steel, thick walls and extra seals, making an extreme diver, putting all others to shame. Watches by Aragon, the value paragon. Designed so unique, they're kinda hard to critique. They seem to get it alright, the material's top flight, and finishing that's surprisingly fine. When I find the color that suits me, I'll have to order mine. And it won't break the bank, with cases built like a tank, and Lume that lights up the room. You never considered a square, and they're kinda rare, but I bet you can pull it off. Even if you're not actually diving, this watch will keep you smiling. Every time you look down at that dial, look at that sunray. How would that not make your whole day? If you're a watch lover like I am. If you're a watch lover like I am. At that sunray, how would that not make your whole day? If you're a watch lover like I am, like I am.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Spotlight Watch Review. My name is Jim, and I'm here to share a cool watch with you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Aragon Divetank 40mm. Now, not many brands work with a truly square case. Bell & Ross may be the one brand who did it with the most amount of models across their brand, and they're probably the most recognized, but Wing has done it plenty over the last 30 years with Aragon and his previous brand, Android. Rectangular cases, I think, are a little bit more common to see than truly square. And this is really, truly square. I'm going to go ahead and push the crown in, screw it down, and give you a good look at how it presents itself. It's a very compact little case. I think this one strikes a good balance for most people. As we've learned, there are a lot of men who have greatly reduced the size of watches that they wear these days. Now, most square watches end up being a little bit too large for them, but here, Aragon has made the Divetank in two different sizes. One is the 48mm case to satisfy the existing collectors that they have brought into the hobby through various sales ventures. And this one, the 40mm. So now even the baby-wristed dive watch lovers can enjoy a square-shaped diver finally. Now, going above and beyond what's expected in their price range, Aragon chose to make this a 500-meter diver. And you'll see on the side here, it has an automatic helium escape valve. Completely useless. You will never, ever be diving in a saturated environment. You're never going to need that. But it's nice to know that the watch is built to a level of engineering that not only can it handle that type of diving depth and duration, but also that it has an automatic version of the valve instead of you having to manually unscrew it. So the work has been put into the case, even though you're never going to put it to the test. It's kind of like a car that goes over 200 miles an hour. You're never, ever, ever going to find a stretch of road that's going to allow you to do that, and you probably wouldn't anyway. But it's nice to know that it's built to the level that it's able to do that. Let's talk about the specs real quick. We'll get this laid down right over here and give ourselves some room to put the graphics up. So what we're looking at is a 40mm square 316L stainless steel case that houses the SII NH35A automatic movement with 24 jewels. Your lug-to-lug measurements on that 40mm is 46mm, so the length across your wrist is quite short. Case thickness is 15.5 millimeters, so it's really not a thick case at all for any kind of diver, but particularly not for a 500-meter diver. Again, that's kind of a big deal. That's a lot of case reinforcing. That's a lot of additional gaskets. That's a lot of additional work and testing to be sure that that is going to be resistant to that level of pressures. You have a sunray style dial in a beautiful teal color in this example. Your crystal is going to be a K1 hardened mineral crystal. Your crown is a screw down. The strap that's on here is a silicone rubberized strap that's 8.5 inches long and 20 millimeters wide between those lugs. Now, it does not taper because the buckle itself is also 20 millimeters. You have a unidirectional rotating bezel that I think we should probably take a listen to. It's a very stiff bezel and very positive clicks on there, 120 click bezel. You have the exhibition case back here displaying your NH35 movement with the beautiful Aragon blued rotor. So as I've mentioned in many other videos with several different brands now, the SII movements are not particularly beautiful movements. There's nothing fancy about them. They're made to work. They're made to handle shock. They're made to be an everyday worn kind of movement, not be elaborate and beautiful. But I think that there's a particular beauty just to the nice, clean, raw machined parts that are there. I love looking at mechanical movements, whether they're, fancied up or not. And the blued rotor does add a little bit to it, makes it look a little bit nicer. On the bezel, they have backfilled it, black ionic plated, and then what they've done is they've gone over the top, the higher surfaces, and given that a nice brushed finish. Got kind of a deep dish dial there with the dot style indices, dive style, ladder style hands. And your simple date over at the 3 o'clock position. I like the screw elements that are in the case. Now, that is not how the case appears to be assembled. It appears to be a one-piece case that they then, obviously install the movement, the dial and all that, and then screw in the case back and pop down the bezel. But it does have a nice kind of, I don't want to say steampunk look. What's the look I'm going for? The word I'm going for here. I don't know. It's kind of a mechanical look and feel to it. I dig that. In the same way with the lugs. These are obviously not removable lug screws with thumb screw ends. It is very simple spring bars in there, but it has that look when it's on the wrist. There are a few brands that actually do use hardware like that, and they tend to be really, really expensive watches. And this one really is not. So all of this at a 500-meter diver for under $200, that's exactly what Aragon does so well. Now, what I want to see on this watch is the optional mesh steel bracelet, because the accordion-style rubber dive strap just doesn't do it for me. And that's not a knock on this watch. It's something that I've mentioned on many dive watch reviews that I've done, that while, yes, they're comfortable and it is a classic look that we all know, it's just not one that I'm particularly in love with. And I think also on this watch, it doesn't quite fit it because there's so much style and so much design language going on in the case and in the bezel that I think such a simplified strap doesn't do it justice. And that may be expecting a little bit too much, especially for the price point. But when I see this level of design going into a case head, I kind of want to see that followed through in the strap. Even if it was a tropic strap or it was a nice raised center portion FKM strap, I think that I would have really, really liked that. But the very basic dive strap that we're seeing here, the ventilated ends with the accordion style lug ends, it doesn't feel like it's quite enough. Now, maybe they had tried different things and it was overwhelming. It was too much going on because of the casework and the bezel work being so busy. And that's certainly a valid point. I could certainly concede to that. But I think the mesh style bracelet would probably look really, really good on there. They have not photographed any on their website that I can see that's on the mesh bracelet, but in my head, I see it as being really nice and understated and very tough looking. Let's take a look at this on the wrist, and we're going to play with the Lume. And there it is on the wrist. So as I mentioned, very short lug to lug. You don't have to worry if you have a small wrist about it overwhelming your wrist and hanging off of it. I have just under an 8-inch wrist, and it's just inside of the wrist bone on both sides. For me, this could have been 2 millimeters larger easily. This feels a little bit small for me. It looks handsome, but when I look at it on my own wrist, it just looks and feels a bit small. I don't mind when something goes all the way to the very ends of my wrist, as you see here. This is a watch you should be ignoring because this technically isn't available yet, so I'm really not supposed to be showing it, but I like that size a lot. Here, it just feels a little tiny on my particular wrist. But if you have a smaller wrist and or you just simply prefer wearing a smaller watch than I do, I think you're going to love this in the 40 millimeter. And that's something I have to give praise to Aragon for, having the foresight to say, hey, not everybody's going to want to wear that monster 48 millimeter. I wouldn't either. That would be too big. The 48 millimeter in a square like this would just be too big. That really goes back to the audience that they built on television back in the early 2000s. And that customer base has been so loyal to Wing that he can't just shake them loose. That wouldn't be fair to them after all the watches that customer base has bought from him over the years. To just abandon them, I don't think would have been the right move. I'm just going to bump this back a little bit. Remember, kids, do not set your hands anti-clockwise. Going one marker up isn't the worst thing in the world, but I've seen people actually running it backwards in their reviews, and it just makes me cringe. It hurts. Remember, you have a mechanical movement here that is meant only to be run clockwise. And to go backwards forces everything inside that movement to go the wrong way. That's just never a good idea. So anyway, as I was mentioning, that customer base has been so loyal to Wing through his brands, and it would be a kick in the teeth to them to just say, you know what, the entire industry is going to smaller watches. That's where it is. So that's what we're going to do. Because unfortunately, that's what so many other brands have done. And they've left a lot of people behind. As I mentioned in previous reviews, it may have been even in the previous Aragon review, there was a time, 2000 to 2012, around there, that every major popular watch was big. Was 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 55 millimeters, and it left a lot of normal-sized people out. They couldn't buy all these cool, funky, with it watches. They just couldn't do it. It left them behind. That trend left them behind. But now, unfortunately, the pendulum has swung all the way in the other direction. Instead of finding a nice middle ground, and almost every micro brand that had made that popular, they're making 38 and 40 millimeter watches for grown men. And I'm sorry, but for me, that's like a toddler's watch. It looks like a little girl's watch. There's no way in the world I can wear a 38 or 40 millimeter sport watch. I can't do it. but I don't want them as big as they used to be. I'm right in the middle now. I'm that 42 to 44 millimeter guy. And Wing was smart by saying, we're going to still make some watches for our existing customer base that have been so loyal, that have been so wonderful, that have helped us grow our business. However, in addition to that, we're going to make some standard sized watches as well, because that's where the whole industry went, and that's what customers expect. And if they're going to be new to our brand, we want them to find something that they're going to like. We're not going to force them to wear something they are not comfortable with, which unfortunately there's a lot of brands that I'm interested in right now. And it's like they want to force me to wear a watch that I'm not comfortable with. I don't want to wear a teeny tiny little girly watch. So yeah, as much as I love brand A or brand B, I'm not going to spend the money to buy their watches because I'm not going to like the sizes. So for me, I want to see that middle ground. Whether they decide to do mid sizes or they do what Aragon's doing and they make two different versions of the same model. So you have all the same choices. If you decide you want to do this teal dial, you have a couple different movement choices. There's one that has a power reserve indicator on it. There's the plain version like this. And you could do 40 or 48. So you have that power, you have that choice. That's the smart way of doing business. If you want something that gives you that beefy look, but isn't tremendously oversized, the 40 millimeter is going to be an excellent choice for you. If you really do enjoy a very oversized watch, then you're probably going to want to look into the 48 millimeter. They're very, very solid cases, which they would have to be a 500 meter diver. You've got a fantastic and well-proven movement inside. And something I promised to do earlier and I didn't do, let's take a look at the Lume. I already know the Lume is going to be good on this, but you need to see that. Okay, you ready? Oh yeah, look at that. Nice and bright. Lots of application here, multiple passes and large applications. Each of your hour markers are large dots. Each of the hands are very broad sized hands. So there's lots of room for Lume. So yeah, you've got a lot going on there and it's going to glow vividly and for long periods of time. Now, Aragon has used Super Luminova. I'm going to assume this is also Super Luminova. The information, unfortunately, was not on their website, but it's my estimation that this is Super Luminova. At least the way that it glows up, it really, really pops. So once again, the quality, fantastic. My two nitpicks are, one, the stiffness of the bezel, and two, the fact that they're using silicone rubber. I'm not a big silicone fan anymore because it attracts, as you can see here, dust, animal hair, things like that, and it can look nasty throughout the day. And I think this watch has got to look amazing on the steel mesh bracelet. I would have loved to have seen that. So I hope they're going to upload some pictures of it on the optional steel bracelet, because that is something that you can purchase. When you're ordering one of these, you have the ability to somewhat customize them a little bit. You can buy different straps or bracelets or whatnot, and I'd love to see this on the bracelet. If the picture is there and I missed it, that's on me, but I did look and I didn't see it, so I hope to see that on there just to kind of see what it looks like. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I'll see you on the next video.